Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Working for You. I am Lesroy Williams. I thank all of you who have tuned in today to today's program. We thank you for joining us from week to week. Today we are going to be discussing a very important topic, that of tourism. Of course, we know since the sugar industry in St. Kitts closed in 2005, tourism really has been the mainstay of the economy. Tourism concerns all of us. Tourism is us. And so therefore it is very important that we keep this industry alive. It is important that we keep it sustainable. Today I have with me two officials from the Ministry of Tourism. I have with me on my left Carleen Henry Morton, who is the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. And I have with me Dianelle Taylor Williams, who is the responsible for sustainable tourism in the Ministry of Tourism, the Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. Welcome to this program.
Thanks for having us.
It is indeed a pleasure to have you here again. I know that you have been here before, but this time there is something that graces the table, which is an award, a trophy, which we are basically going to talk about in a bit, among other things. But I do know that the Ministry of Tourism, over the 2016-2017 year, has had many successes. Of course, there have been challenges, but you know, with being a team working together, of course we confront the challenges, but more so we are here to deal with the successes that the Ministry of Tourism has had. So I really want to begin with the most recent thing, let me say thing or award that the ministry was presented with, showing how successful the ministry has been in the 2016-2017 year. You've just had, of course, the Climate Smart Sustainable Tourism Forum at the Ocean Terrace Inn from December 11th to the 14th, 27 under the theme Good for Us, Better for All. Can you tell us something about that forum and what came out of it?
I'll hand over to Dianelle because that basically is Dianelle's baby. She has worked on it from beginning to end.
Sure.
And I don't think it would be fair for me to steal Dianelle's thunder. So I think I will
go right ahead, Dianelle.
Okay, the Sustainable Tourism Forum, as you indicated, was held just last week. I mean, after about 6 months in planning, actually it's longer than 6 months. The original schedule would have been 6 months, so it ended up being in 9 months. And we just won the award for excellence in sustainable tourism from the Caribbean Tourism Organization, which is quite a crown and quite a feather in our cap in terms of the work we are doing at the Ministry of Tourism. As a matter of fact, just to give you a summary of what that means, because for someone who is out in Radioland listening or who's on watching us on television, what does an Excellence in Sustainable Tourism Award mean? It means, and it speaks to the fact that having closed the sugar industry in 2005, the ministry began to focus on tourism as the primary economic driver. The ministry recognized the sustainability risks that were associated with tourism development. And the good thing for us is that having just started out in tourism, we were able to look at the pitfalls of some neighboring destinations and avoid those pitfalls, and to focus on how we can make our tourism product sustainable. How can we do things now so that it does not create repercussions for future generations. And so we began to deliberately go on a path of sustainability, and we began a sustainable destination management program. And so it has grown over the years. We've done several programs. We have one of the things that we are being recognized for, and as a matter of fact, it's going to be something, it's being used as a case study that can be implemented in other destinations, is the idea of having a multi-sectoral group or multi-stakeholder group that manages destination, the destination management or destination stewardship. So we have the Sustainable Destination Council that's being modeled in other destinations. So that is something that we are already being recognized for. Some of the things that the council does, they're also being recognized. Just this year, we had Plastic Free July. We also worked with the water department, and we began efforts in 2015, 2016 to look at the issue of water and water resilience. And so we had that program. We had several other programs that speak to why we got that award as well. Our tourism education program, our community tourism program with the Rails to Trails project, which is a new innovation. It's not new to the rest of the world, but it's new to us in the region, converting an unused portion of the railway to create biking and hiking trails. And the great thing is, while we were at the forum, there was a gentleman who has just introduced an e-bike, an electric bike, and part of his tour will take us through the Rails to Trails project, the landing area for the Rails to Trails project. That is going to be used, and it ties in with everything that we are promoting, because the e-bikes, as you would recognize, reduces the use of fossil fuels. But you can have that experience where you look at the culture in terms of the railway, nature, you're in touch with nature going along that trail, and you also get an opportunity for economic benefit where you do business with the people in that community. So those are some of the things that we were recognized for when we won the Excellence in Sustainable Tourism Award. Not only do we have those things, when we completed the nominations form for every area that we spoke of, we had to show what legislative backing, what policy is in place. So the political side is also an integral part of what has been done in terms of our winning the award. And we had the legislation and policy in place to back the programs that we have introduced.
Sure, so that would be the government side of it.
Yes, definitely.
So the government has basically implemented certain policies and so on.
Right.
And they really should be complemented
Exactly.
in the success that the Ministry of
As
Tourism
well.
is having.
Right.
Okay. Of course, let us see your trophy.
Let them see the baby.
Yes.
I refer to it as our baby.
Yes.
And if you were at the award ceremony, you would have easily picked out this award. It was actually the largest award.
It was the largest.
Because that speaks to the weight that is given to the award itself, the amount of work that is done,
Right.
having won this award. And just wanted to point out to persons who are listening or viewing, we won an award 3 years ago for destination stewardship.
Right.
So we've now gone to the next level. This award speaks to the fact that we've moved beyond that. In 3 years, we would have moved so far that we were able to cop this award.
Sure.
Very first time we applied for the award. And out of the other nominees, we were finalists with 2 other organizations. And it's important to note that the 2 other organizations were private sector
Right.
organizations. We were the only public sector finalists, and we won the award.
Oh, great.
the top award.
Award,
top
yes.
award.
Yes, it was the top award.
Emphasis on top.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Now, of course, sustainable tourism, you've won the top award
Yes.
for sustainable tourism, and I think it is from 96 entries
From 17
and
countries.
17 countries and across 7 categories.
Yeah, but there were a number of different, well, there were individual categories.
Sure.
And those were the smaller awards, so to speak. Not that I'm minimizing the importance, but just to differentiate between the
Right.
different sets of awards. And so we had, I think it was between 7 or 10 different awards. And we walked away with the top award.
Right.
But I think it needs to be emphasized, as you pointed out, that there were 96 entries. As a matter of fact, CTO said this is the first time that they have ever had that many entries. Normally they top off at 30, 40.
It's record breaking.
Record
Yes.
breaking. And what they also told us is that the judging, it was done among several levels. So they had the initial things, the things came in. They actually allowed persons who were sponsoring awards to read the different applications and to so they had some input into before it moved on to the next level and the next. So they have several levels of judging, and with all of that, we were able to withstand that type of scrutiny and still come out on top. And I think that we ought to feel very proud of ourselves.
Sure,
I am
certainly.
very proud of the team at the Ministry of Tourism. They are a very hard-working team. We are very proud of all of the private sector stakeholders, the NGOs who would have worked with us and so on and so forth. Because something like this, you can't get it on your own. It can't be
Right.
just the ministry.
It's a teamwork.
Right, the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, the different hotels and restaurants and so on, who would have sent the citizens and residents out to the different training sessions that we would have had and so on. So it's a build-up over a period of time towards arriving at this particular
Sure.
this destination.
And of course, it's important because all tourism must be sustainable.
Of course.
That must underpin
Everything.
everything that we do with respect to tourism. Because as Daniel said, it is not just about thinking about the now, but in terms of protecting what we have for future generations to come.
I'm
But-
surprised Daniel hasn't said it as yet, but Daniel likes to say she wants to get to the point where
That's
when we
very
talk about tourism, we don't even have to say the word sustainable tourism because people understand that it has to be sustainable. And that is where we want to get to.
Yes.
People understand that we have to be responsible, we have to be custodians, we have to look after what we have.
Right. Right. Okay, so what have been some of the other successes for the year, this year, the tourism year, 2016 to 2017? What have been some of the initiatives that have been implemented this year? Other initiatives, she spoke about some.
Well, I can look at the latest and try to see if I can recall.
And go back, okay.
Right. Black Rocks, for example. We have the infrastructure down there that has been put in. Whitegate has been an excellent partner for us, the Whitegate Development Corporation. They have spent close to $700,000 on the infrastructure, the drainage that has been put in, the roads, landscaping. They have made some lawn furniture and so on that they have put in. The government has contributed. We have spent, it's going to be, by the time we put in the other five of the vendors' booths have been completed, Chattel House style. And they in themselves will become the story because we need to use those now to educate our visitors when they come. That we have chosen to build using this particular design because it has historical value and so on. And this is what the houses used to look like back when people didn't own land. And the colonial times when the landowner could come to you just on the spur of the moment and say, take up your house off of my land. And so you had to move along, pack it up very quickly and go with it and so on. And it is a story of resilience, a story of how resourceful we are as a people. So we have those 5 that have been completed. And next week, Wednesday, I think that is the date that has been set, the first 5 vendors would get their keys to move in. And the other 5, before the end of this year, construction will begin on that other 5. We're also going to be building some stalls because not everybody would want a booth. There are some persons, the primate petting vendors, for example, the people who are selling fruits and vegetables and preserves and so on, they would get stalls so that they're out of the sun, they're out of the rain, they're away from the elements, and you bring some dignity to how, you know, they are able to provide the service that they are providing. Because all told, Black Rocks was in serious disrepair. And we didn't think that what was down there, that it was something that befitted the stature of an iconic tourist attraction like Black Rocks. And so, as I said, we have been partnering with the Whitegate Development Corporation to see what we can do to improve visitor comfort, to improve the optics down there, and to make sure that we have something, a product that we can be proud of when people go to visit that particular site.
Now, apart from the vendors, of course, vending their goods, their services, what has been put in place in terms of teaching or educating the vendors in terms of how to deal with tourists?
Yeah.
The customer service.
Excellence. And the SKTA, by and large, they take care of that. There is training every year, certification and recertification, so that our frontline people in the hotels, the restaurants, those persons, as you say, who do the vending and so on, they understand how to interact with the visitors when they come here. So you don't go harassing them and dragging on them, miss, you want this and so on. You know, you learn the language of encouraging and enticing and, you know,
To be polite.
and how to, you know, get people to buy what you have. And if they don't buy, you know, you have a good day, thank you very much,
That's
make sure you
right.
come again, and so
Enjoy
on
the
and so
rest
forth,
of the
enjoy the
island.
rest of the
Yes.
island and so on. So we are helping our vendors and service providers where that is concerned. A lot of training, a lot of awareness building, a lot of sensitization is taking place where our interaction with our visitors and guests when they come here where that is concerned. So that is another area that we are proud of. The
Right.
whole idea as well is the tourism education program has elements of that too, because you don't want to wait until people are adults to fix them. You understand what I mean? If from primary school, that kind of age, you could get people understanding the importance of the tourism sector, the importance of the industry, how, even if you have some simulation exercises and
Yes.
so on, and getting our young people to understand how to speak to each other and how to speak to people. And, you know, even if you're not dealing with a tourist, even a citizen, somebody comes into your business place, how do you interact with that individual so the person continues to come to patronize you and you know the service that you're offering and so on? I think that all of that is absolutely necessary, and if we learn how to deal with each other, it is so much easier to deal with other people. Respect ourselves, respect other people. It doesn't, even if they come from Mars, it doesn't matter where they come from. I think that is a big lesson for
I
us.
think that coming out of a slave society, because that is what we were, a slave society, it is important, I think, to differentiate between what it means to serve, to be servicial, and what it means in terms of servitude. I think there are some people who mix up the two.
They can't get
They
together.
think that, you know, to serve, if I have to serve people and so on, it's about servitude. Explain the difference.
Well, for me, I think that there's the difference between service and servitude. As you said, servitude suggests that you own me and that you could
have no
compel
say.
me and I have no say. When I provide in a service, I do it in a particular way at a level of excellence because I love what I do and I want to make sure that you are my guest, you have the best experience possible. I add value to the experience that you have so that you can come again. And if you can't make it, you will be able to speak in glowing terms about the service so that other people can come. So I think that if people begin to look at, you know, tourism and the way that we interact with our guests in that way, you're not necessarily their servant, but you're providing a service. And you're doing
Right.
it at the best, you know, in the best way that you can.
And you are representing your country.
Your country, yes.
Exactly.
You're representing your country, and that has to do with being proud of your country.
Exactly.
So, if people feel that their country is not representing them, it might be more difficult for them to buy the concept that I must represent my country.
Well,
So,
that's part of the training,
yes.
right? And it's part of the idea of getting, because sometimes you feel as if you're not being best served, because you feel as if you're entitled to things that you're not necessarily entitled to. You understand what I mean? And people need to begin to look inwardly to understand. It's not about how other people treat me. It's about how I see myself. How I see myself. Because you can't go around controlling the world. If you have established in your mind that you're going to conduct yourself in a particular way, you're not going to lower your standards. It doesn't matter what other people think and do and so on. You keep very focused. You may not get it done 100% of the time, because we are human beings and we would err. But it is normally how do I normally behave? Not the exception, but how do I normally behave? And you hold yourself to that very high standard.
You know something? Maybe sometime we have to look at the imbalances and so on. There probably might be some people working in a hotel, upscale hotel, but yet they can't afford to eat in that hotel.
I suppose that it happens. But you still have to make sure that you understand what you have, and you make the best of what you have. Don't measure it by what other people have, right? You know that was something that our grandparents and parents and so on. Don't look at what other people have. Yes, you aspire, but you also have to be practical.
Yes.
You have to be realistic. You may not be able to eat at that particular establishment, but the fact of the matter is that is what is allowing you to meet your commitments. So you better perform at the best level that you can perform, so that you can at least take home a salary or a wage at the end of the week or month or whatever it is. And who knows? You work your way up steadily. One of these days, you may just make it to being able to eat at that hotel, and better than that too. But you have to keep that job that you have first.
Yes, I just threw that in there. but the importance, of course, that you are underscoring is that of training people within the tourism sector.
Yes.
Because our human resource is our most important resource.
Definitely.
You know, and the people have to be trained. They have to realize that, look, this is our economy. Our economy right now is tourism based. And so therefore we have to buy into it. I don't think that some people in St. Kitts and Nevis have bought into the idea of tourism as yet. I don't think so.
Really? I beg to differ. Not as many as we would like have bought into it, but I'm not sure.
That's why I said some.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we just conducted a resident satisfaction survey, and that's another plus for us. When we were at the forum, many of the participants, after we did our presentation, marveled at the fact that we had done a resident satisfaction survey, because what is the norm is that you do a visitor satisfaction survey. You want to hear how the visitor felt, their experience. But how many persons are asking the residents, how do you feel about tourism in your country? Do you think that you're benefiting from tourism? And while we're still analyzing some of the responses, by and large, what we have seen so far is that our people are pleased with what we're doing in tourism. I mean, some people are saying, yes, they would like to be a little more involved. But our survey says, and we did a sampling from the entire country. So we had, based on population, parish size, we got numbers of respondents based on that. And, I mean, it was, for me, I've been in tourism, I've heard people complain. But in the end, when you see what people wrote, you see that people are in tune with what is happening. There's some things, some areas we might need to address, but for the most part, people feel that we're doing great with what we're doing in tourism. You know. So
there's that resident
satisfaction
survey. And then from the other end, you have the visitor satisfaction
and
survey.
We also do the visitor satisfaction surveys as well.
What are some of the results of that you're getting from the visitor satisfaction survey?
Well, for the most part, we seem to be scoring pretty high. A number of the respondents are saying that they like the culture, they like the heritage, they like the people.
That's the
that
biggest
scores
thing.
very high. That they
Oh,
find that
yes.
we're very hospitable.
Okay.
You know, and that we're very approachable people, and we seem to be very helpful, and so on and so forth. So we're always scoring high on that particular area. But a number of they like the whole idea of some of the sites and attractions that we have as well. So we're doing really well there.
Okay. Because of course, what we have recognized is that more cruise ships are coming. I think how many are in today? 4?
I think about 4. I think we have
4
about
cruise
of
ships
them
in today, which gives us a good feeling.
Very good feeling.
And we see the need for building a second cruise ship pier, which the government will start sometime next year because of the growing demand
Yes.
in the cruise industry. Now, with such growing demand, it means then that we would have to train more people. More jobs are going to be available for people and so on.
Yes,
And it speaks well for the economy.
it does. It does.
You know.
We're very optimistic.
Right.
Very optimistic.
Now, in terms of the ministry and how it collaborates or links or partners with the private sector, how has that been going?
That has been going pretty well. Let me just go back to the Climate Smart Sustainable Tourism Forum. Without that type of PPP, the partnership, I don't think we would have been able to pull it off. I think Diane, I'll let you speak to that too, because again, that's Diane's area. But if Diane made one more call, but she was able to bring all of those partners together. So I think I would let her speak about that.
For us, it was, well, as I indicated earlier, we have the multi-sectoral group, the Sustainable Destination Council, and they were an integral part in terms of the planning of the forum. But we got people on board immediately. Ocean Terracing came on board, Marriott came on board. I mean, they were offering us really good rates. And even though we had to change the forum from September, which would have been the off-peak period, so they gave us a good rate for the off-peak period, which would have been lower than their usual rate. And then they kept that rate even into December. So we had Marriott, we had Kitishan Hill, we had Timothy Beach Resort. We had all of these properties offering us good rates. We had Island Auto Supply Car Rentals providing us with a vehicle. We had a couple, most importantly, I forgot, Christoph Harbour Foundation came on board immediately to sponsor or co-sponsor our welcome reception that we had for the forum. And I mean, with these terms of in terms of partnership, it was very important because we know that we did not have a big budget, and the demand for the forum had grown. I mean, we were bringing in people externally, and we would have had to look at taking care of these people. We had tours to organize, taking people out to see the destination. We wanted people to have the best experience of the destination, and so coming on board would have helped our ministry and the government, because government is who would have sponsored a forum like this. And the thing is, we are already reaching international media. I actually have an article that was published by one of the media persons who would have been present. She's from Canada. Our keynote speaker was from BBC, so we have the UK covered. We also had media from the US. We had media from the Caribbean. So in terms of the value, when these articles are published, there is a value in terms of what it would have cost if we had put that in terms of advertising. When you put that, the amount of money that was invested by us is small in comparison to the awareness that would be created about St. Kitts and Nevis. We had people, stopping us everywhere we went, people who were attending the forum, asking about it, asking about engaging. how did you get this done? And we're able to tell them we're working with, even the tourism education program, we're working with private sector partners. You have restaurants and hotels coming on board to support the tourism education program. We have individuals who want to support the Rails to Trails project. We have other people who are helping us with the Heart of St. Kitts Foundation. That's the private sector giving back to tourism, because they recognize Ministry of Tourism and government cannot do it alone.
Right.
And it is better if it is really to be sustainable. The pillar, the foundation of sustainable tourism is public-private sector partnership. If you don't have that, you can have all the other pillars. Without that strong foundation of public-private sector partnership, we're not going anywhere. It's not
Okay.
going to be sustainable.
So the
Right.
3 Ps.
Yes.
Mrs. Morton, I know that the Destination Guardian training is a PPP.
Again, as Diane
Initiative.
said, the whole idea is that you have the training sessions, but you have to reach out to the stakeholders to send people from their particular establishments and so on. So that is, again, is another, because it's when you send somebody from your particular enterprise, your organization, your place of work, you're paying them for the day, but the person is actually out
Right.
doing a
Yes.
workshop. So it is an investment. Of some kind. And so those are the types of partnerships that we see all the time. The willingness, people are being very receptive. I think people are seeing the results of having their employees trained to be able to deliver our stories,
Sure.
to engage our visitors when they come here and so on. And because people are seeing the results, you don't have to ask twice. Whenever we organize training, for the most part, we get a very positive response from the private sector, and they send people along.
Sure. Now, the United Nations World Tourism Organization has a set of sustainable development goals.
Yes.
Tourism and what we call the SDGs. What is St. Kitts doing, the Ministry of Tourism, to incorporate these SDGs so at least we can reach meet the 2030 goal set out by United Nations?
I think for a lot of the initiatives that we are implementing, even though we may not have purposely set out, when we examine some of them, we are meeting a lot of the SDGs.
Yes, we are.
Even though we didn't actually have that awareness. But we are
Sure.
bringing that awareness now so that we can deliberately work to incorporate a lot of the SDGs into the work that we're doing.
Right.
Just yesterday we had a staff meeting, our final staff meeting for 2017, and I had shared the SDGs in soft copy with the unit heads. But I have asked all unit heads and members of staff, whenever an idea comes to your head, whenever you put it on the
Checklist.
table, make sure that you see, well, this would meet the requirement for number 3 or number 12 or number 8 or whatever it is, because a lot of it is about poverty reduction.
Yes.
About, as you say, sustainable development of whatever product you have. And the SDGs don't only relate to tourism. Every ministry ought to be looking at where they can build in these SDGs
Yes.
into the initiatives and programs and so on that they are implementing. Just the other day, there was a consultant here, a Dr. Morris, and she had brought a number of senior officers from different ministries together to talk about the results, land use and so on. And she said for a lot of persons with whom she had spoken in the public and private sector, they had never heard of the SDGs. So at the Ministry of Tourism, we are making a deliberate effort to make sure that we mention them, we bring that awareness about them, and we get people understanding that we need to begin making sure that we build them into, we integrate them into whatever it is that we are doing, because they're very, very important.
Okay. Now, one of the things in terms of sustainable tourism is, of course, for 6 months of the year, we have a hurricane season. And because of that, tourism is always under threat from disasters. It can be a rather fragile industry, given the fact that we're in the hurricane zone. What is in place in the Ministry of Tourism to mitigate against, the hazard this environmental hazard every year?
Okay, first of all, that's where one of the reasons why our destination group is not called sustainable tourism. Because for it to be sustainable tourism, we have to have our partners involved. So while we do not deal with disaster management, we have to partner. As a matter of fact, one of the things that struck me when we had the forum, we had a presentation by General Honore. I'm not sure how many people know of General Honore. He was integral in the disaster recovery in New Orleans. He made a Skype presentation. He was unable to be at the forum, but he made it a point. He said he wanted to be involved. So we had to Skype him in to the forum. And we have to put certain things in place. Now, we have to work with the other government agencies. For example, there's a Department of Environment that deals with some of the issues in terms of coastal development, Ministry of Sustainable Development in terms of land use. Tourism has to put in their 10 cents worth in the discussions about the land use management. I mean, we educate people because the training does that. We look at for example, climate change is real. We don't have to go anywhere else. And I am a little disturbed that not many more persons would have heard the general. He was very frank, right? I mean, he said, what do you expect if you build on the shore? If it to do anything different, knowing that you're building on the shore with the threat of climate change and to get damage, is stupidity. He said it just like that, right? So we work with the other agencies, but what we're doing is we are creating education and awareness. We might not necessarily be involved. For example, the Ministry of Tourism is not a part of the Development Planning and Control Board, but we have members of the Destination Council who are members of the Development Planning and Control Board. Now, every member of the Destination Council goes through the Destination Guardian training. We speak to the issues, the environmental issues, the socio-cultural issues. So when this person sits on that committee, they are armed with the knowledge of the things that would impact tourism, right? So we have those advocates in the different agencies. Public sector, private sector. Now, we know that the hurricane season is 6 months. However, we know that the peak of the season is September.
Yes.
And there are things that are happening we would not prefer. But as a result of my being a part of that forum, it has brought back the desire I had a few years ago when I first got a copy of the multi-hazard manual that was prepared by CTO in collaboration with CDB. They're now doing a revision. At the end of the forum, we had a consultation to discuss that. They're going to create this multi-hazard manual part 2. And it looks at the hurricane season and things that we need to do, how we need to organize ourselves. So, for example, for next year, the council is going to be reaching out to NEMA. That is something I am proposing to my council. We reach out to NEMA to see how we can better work together in terms of climate change. For example, our little program about Plastic-Free July, which many people probably took for granted, makes a difference in terms of climate change, because if we reduce the amount of plastics we put into the landfill and into the marine environment, we are doing our part to reduce the amount of Category 5 hurricanes, as small and as insignificant as it might seem. Other programs, water conservation, land use management, those are things that make a difference and help us to be prepared. We will be advocates for the work that the government is doing in terms of the building code, our Destination Guardian. So while I might not work, or somebody else who's working at the Department of Marine Resources, or they might be working at the Electricity Department, they might not be directly involved, but as Destination Guardians, true guardians of the destination, you notice something, see something, say something. It's not only the police who have to do that. We also have to police the environment, our destination, because this is where we earn our bread and butter, right? And so one person, you might say, well, that's their business. They want to build their house on the coast. They want their house to get destroyed. It's going to impact all of us, because that person who is hurt, when their house gets damaged, it comes back to government. Government only makes money by taxes. So when you look at it, all of us going to be impacted. So when you see something like that, say something, right? And I know the Department of Environment is working to review and upgrade the NCEPA, the National Conservation and Environmental Protection Act, to make it NCEMA, a Management Act, and to look at issues like that. We are also working Ministry of Tourism with the standards, the Bureau of Standards, where we have standards in place, and standards can speak to not only the hotel standards and customer service, but the harder issues in terms of infrastructure. So we are going to be working on those things going forward, so that while we cannot stop the impacts of the hurricanes, we can reduce the level of impact. We can look at the lessons learned, and we had a session at the forum by the persons who were most impacted by the storms. You heard people from BVI, the lady talking about how a family survived by staying in a fridge, or somebody survived by staying in a fridge. The lessons they would have learned, it would be remiss of us not to take those lessons to heart. What people had to deal with, how they are recovering right now, where you only have certain places with electricity. Those are things that we need to pay attention to here. It did not happen to us in 2017, but when will it happen to us? Because, as the scientists are saying, these things are inevitable. What we do now, and the general kept saying it, he said it at the beginning of his presentation, and he ended it by saying it, we have to prepare. We can't stop them. What we need to do is prepare.
I think what determined a lot of the building in the tourism industry had to do with a particular concept, a particular image of the 3 S's.
Yes.
Sand, sea, and sun. That romantic picture that you step out of the hotel and you're right onto the beach.
Yes, well, you can still have it, but the setback, we're going to have that setback. Because the other S is safety or security, whichever one you want to use. There's another S, and we have to be mindful of that other S.
Right.
So you can still have the C. And the good thing is, if you have the setback, you'll have unobstructed views of the same sea that you want to see. Right? So it's even better for you. You can see the sunrise, the sunset. There's no building encroaching upon the beach because everybody has the same setback.
Right.
And you have the protection, because then the hotel that meant so much to you, that created such memories, 5 years down the road, you can't go back to it because it's destroyed. Because if they abided by the laws, which says you have to do this 100 feet setback, the impact would have been even less. Or you don't destroy the dunes to build, because the dunes there to protect, or the seagrass, or the grape trees, because people think, oh, we don't want grape trees on the beach, we want coconut trees. But the grape trees hold the sand together.
Yes.
And it helps. The sand creates the dunes, which reduces the impact of the wave action to the building. So by the time it gets to the dunes, and by the time it gets to your building with its setback, the impact is lessened, because the dynamics of the ocean would have been reduced by that dune. So, I mean, everything is connected. That's what we have to realize. Connectivity in everything. There's people like to talk about being independent. We're all interdependent. We're interdependent. We're dependent on the environment. The environment is dependent on us.
It's an ecosystem.
Exactly. Right? And we need to understand it as that it goes together. Everything is connected. Your little action here, and I told my colleague who presented with us from Marine Resources, why didn't you show that slide that you had before? The ripple effect, 1 drop. But when you make that 1 drop on a big bowl of water, the ripples go way out. But you look at it, it's only a small. Your one action, your small action, the rippling effect not only lasts now, it goes on for years. And it impacts future generations. That is why we have to be careful about our 1 drop is.
Yeah, it is how we get people to think in that manner. Systems thinking.
Right.
You know, you just don't think about, my little corner or my little world, but you think of the entire system.
Exactly.
And how the system is affected. And I think that is where we have to really start
The education.
today. Now, Mrs. Morton, what is the Ministry of Tourism doing to market St. Kitts and Nevis, of course, more than just being the three S's, the sand, the sea, and the sun, because now we're talking about tourism diversification.
Well, we have over 240 inventory sites. Some of them not as developed as, we would want them to be. But I'm just throwing that out there so that people can hear. And if you have ideas along, the culture and heritage and so on, come and speak to us. Speak to National Trust. They would be able to tell you what some of these sites are, because I know there are people out there with a lot of ideas. And it's just a matter of understanding where they can put their ideas to best use. So that type of awareness and sensitization, as I said, we deliver that type of training, and we are willing to share that type of information. The whole idea of the adventure and ecotourism,
Yes.
The rails to trails. Again, that type of tourism offers a lot of opportunities for employment and entrepreneurship. There are persons within their own communities who know up in the mountains and some of the abandoned estates and so on at the back of their hands. We who don't venture up, they don't even know that they exist. So it's just a matter of, again, bringing that type of information to our awareness. The different trails, can be created so that you can take people up into those areas and learn your stories. I was in Jamaica in November, and I must give it to them. They have that corner covered. Their people can tell a story. You hear me? And it is obvious that the story has been learnt because, they can tell you from A to Z, for example, but the way that they deliver it doesn't sound rehearsed. And they have been trained, or they have trained themselves to put a lot of themselves into how they deliver the story. And I marveled at that, and I said, listen, we have to be able to do that in St. Kitts, to get our people to tell our own stories. I told you this morning when we spoke that there's somebody who says, don't let anybody blow your trumpet for you because they're going to spoil it. Right. So we have to learn how to tell our own stories. And that is something that in the new year, in 2018, that is something for sure. I've told Mrs. Taylor Williams that we're working on that, getting somebody to put the stories together. We have enough historians here. The stories are there. But how do we bring them alive? How do we train our people to tell those stories so that they are captivating, those human interest stories, for example? We spoke this morning as well about Mr. Depaswa in Challengers, and I'll just use that as an example.
Very good at making his Marvin.
This is a man who is over 100 years old, from what I've been made to understand. But he has in his mind, he has kept this recipe for how to make this Morbi that his wife had taught him how to do and so on. That is a story. That in itself, especially, and when you take into consideration that Mr. Depaswa lives in the same area with the rails to trails, so that is another link. So you take them down into that area and so on and talk to Mr. Depaswa. So those are the Black Rock story, the housing that I spoke about, the Chattel House and so on. How do we tell those stories?
And just to add to that, we did a workshop. There was a workshop about communicating sustainability. And the funny thing is, aside from the workshop, our keynote speaker, who is from BBC, he's a BBC journalist, spoke about the importance of telling your stories which are unique to your destination.
Sure.
That's what gets international coverage.
I think we have to go to the phone lines.
Okay,
It's that time, so we put on our headphones and we want to hear from the people.
Okay.
Of course, tourism is us. Tourism is all of us. And so, we should have an interest. We're all stakeholders. The numbers to call are 465-2555, the local number, and the overseas number is 1-718-577-2916. That's 1-718-577-2916. We welcome your calls. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leslie.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
And how is the good workers at the tourism department?
We are fine, thank you. Thanks for asking.
Yes, I have 3 serious questions where I want you all to address and answer me right now, because it's very troubling around the island by these vendors and the different sites them and Port Zante. No, number 1, Daniel, I want you all to put something in place It's these taximen that when a taximan got a group of people talking to, a next set coming in and cutting in and embarrassing themselves and embarrassing thinkers. These things got to done with. And cutting prices, it have to done with. The another one, Miss Morton, is these safari man with his truck. I want to know if they got liquor license. Because if any of these cruise ship passengers get hurt, with them offering them liquor going to the island, they want to know if it's free or it's pay. You are going to pay the consequence. And you are dragging on your foot with these things. The taximan them don't run tourism. When you say tourism, why you all don't mention Hillary Watley and Michael O'Powell? The next one is the uniform. They need to dress properly in front of the people them. This is an award you all just achieved there, you know. And you are just dragging on your foot on these three things. The taximan they may rule themselves. When Hillary was there, they got to fall in line. You can tell me a man in Port talking to a couple trying to get a job and taximan are cutting. Oh, nobody he. I could care you for the tourists must spend the money when they hit these shows. That's how it used to be with Brady, Busso, and all these taximen before. This ain't the do you like business. Have a good day and have a good Christmas. All are you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Jam Down, and the very same to you. Have an excellent Christmas. Okay, there's no one on the line. Would you like to address his concerns? He seemed to have three main concerns.
Let me start with the first one. The one about people cutting into other people's conversation. I'm trying to transact a particular, tour and somebody else who is cutting in and so on. We have tried over the years to deal with that particular issue. The situation is that yes, and I do believe what Mr. Manners is saying, but then sometimes when you go to speak to the taxi drivers, they don't want to tell on each other. You understand what I mean? So how do I deal with it? Even if I said to you, when somebody down on Port Zante came to me, Mr. Williams, and they said to me that they saw you doing so and so and you're cutting in on diners. When I go to dine and say, no, and they say, how can I deal with that? So we do have the training and we do remind them that they're not supposed to be doing that. Leave the visitor to make his or her choice. If there's a conversation taking place already, you back off. You don't harass the person into coming over or to, as he says, cutting prices. I could give you for 5. They're not supposed to be doing that. But when you try to get the case dealt with, you're not getting the persons, the witnesses coming forward to support you. But we will continue to emphasize when we have training that type of behavior is frowned upon, that they must continue that type of practice. It does not do anything to present the image of the country in a very good light. And I'm glad that Mr. Manners has called in. I'm hoping that they're listening and that they're hearing that, that is something that we want to discontinue immediately. I don't know if Daniel has anything else to add where that is concerned.
The only thing is that it is actually against the law. It is in the prescribed areas. When we were asked to define solicitation, we actually, on the advice of the draftsman, the legal draftsman, added a clause to the act that says cutting prices is actually a part of solicitation. What Mrs. Morton said, however, works against us. We can't get the witnesses to come forward and very often can't get people to put things in writing. So how do you take this to court if the witnesses are not willing to go forward? And that is what we need. Very often people do not want to because that might be somebody, the person might say something, so they want us at the Ministry of Tourism. But if we are not present when the incident occurs, how can we go to the court to make a case for them that they're not willing to do?
Right.
So,
Okay.
so that is one of the setbacks for us where that matter is concerned.
Sure. Okay, so we were talking about different types of tourism. I know some time ago there was an OAS, Organization of American States project, asking people to identify heritage sites because they wanted to have a registry. Where is that?
That is exactly what I was talking about,
It's a-
about the 240
yeah.
sites that I think they identified some 240 sites and so
That's
it's ongoing.
it. It's ongoing.
It's being revised
Yes.
because
It is
was
being
done.
revised.
It was done, and it was done quite a long time ago. The registry would have been at the National Trust.
That's
Right?
right.
At that time, it would have been the Heritage Society. But you would, as you would expect, it's been almost 20 years since that was done, and so some of those sites are no longer available. They're not standing, or some sites, because they would have been private property, the use would have changed. People would have taken down what was there and used it because it's their private property. We do have quite a number of sites still left, and that is one of the things with the Heart of St. Kitts. We are saying come next year, Heart of St. Kitts should be in a position to offer small grants, because this year we was the first year we were calling for donations. We continue to ask for donations for the Heart of St. Kitts, especially from tourism businesses, tourism enterprises, and so on, and visitors, so that come next year we can call for proposals from persons who want to develop one of these sites. We can make a contribution, give you some seed fund to get your project off the ground. Because one of the objectives of the Heart of St. Kitts is the development of new tourist sites. And that is what we want to get done. We want persons to come make the donations, but we also want to be in a position where you can see us publicly making contributions to the development of the sites. Every windmill you see, every chimney you see as you go around the island is a historic site. We just take those things for granted. And for that reason we end up having problems where people take the stones. You're taking the heritage. You're taking a potential tourist attraction down when you remove those things, aside from the issue of security and safety. Because when you take out your few stones, the whole thing crumbles.
Compromising.
A lot has to do with, there's a caller on the line. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone there on your panel.
Good afternoon.
Yes. This is Boris. Okay. I guess everybody, most people would know what I'm into. Okay.
Could you turn down the- you have a-
Miss Morton mention about we telling our story, which I think is a good thing. Because I think when
Caller,
when
could you
the visitors
turn your
come here,
radio
they want to
down?
know about us. You know, what history we have, what we eat, you know, how we do things, right? But sometimes it's not all of us who can tell a story or tell our story. So I was wondering if the Ministry of Tourism can probably put something maybe on CD or DVD, you know, so that and sell it. You know, when they're selling things, people also want to buy. You give away. You have 10, you got 1 million people coming for the 10 stuff. But anyway, if you probably can, you know, maybe take a start by maybe putting things on maybe CDs or DVD, because sometimes some of the, you know, the taxi operators too can use it, because, you know, maybe in certain areas and so where there may not be many things to talk about. They could probably put in the CD or the DVD, because some of them have TV monitors and stuff in their buses. So they can probably put it in and, you know, play it, or, you know, so that tourists can see and hear about our stuff. You know, like me, I have, what I do, I have DVDs in my stuff, in my thing. I play Calypso, but I play the social commentary Calypso. That's my thing. Because I think that the Calypso tell a story. I choose what kind of Calypso to play, not just any. I don't want to walk up and push back stuff. I play the Calypso that tell a story. So maybe if the tourism department, you know, tourism can't do everything. That's the first thing, you know, but to make a start, you know, and see how it goes by probably getting some of this stuff and offer them to us, because I for certain we'd get one, right? So offer them to us and for us to use to, so that we can tell the story that they want us to tell.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for that
Thank you,
suggestion.
Paula. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Anyway, I can get in on the program.
You are on the program.
Am I on the program?
Yes,
Okay,
you are.
good. The only one of the contributions that I like to make to the program is that when you look at the ocean from Bastia area, and you will realize that the fuel vessel normally stay on the outside of Bastia and a mooring. And one of the ladies spoke very well about the sandgrass that is in the ocean. Every vessel that dropped the anchor rip the surface of the sand and damage whatever sandgrass we might have. And diving is part of our tourism system. So therefore, it is my belief that we can drop some mooring for some of these small vessels that drop the anchor and tearing up the seabed. If we don't do that, our seabed will come an ordinary sand place where you will just look down when you dive snorkel to see sand. And you want to see sand grass, whereas you will have sisters and small fishes that swimming among divers. So without those, I think that we are destroying our balance of the ecosystem within that area. And so therefore, I think that we should go to mooring, put some fixed mooring, and prevent anchoring in those areas of our harbors and our beaches areas. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
We'll certainly share that information with
Actually,
the-
this is something that is being worked on. While he might have brought it to our attention from a tourism perspective, remember we talk about partnership. Department
just
of
take
Marine
this
Resources are doing
Next
it.
call,
So-
Diane Neal, and then we'll answer. Working for you, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The first caller mentioned uniform. It is a must that all taxi operators wear uniform. And secondly, we are lack of translators.
Okay.
Listen out here.
Okay.
Okay, yes, it is a must. It is the law. It is in the act that the uniforms that have been specified depending on the association. I think they have something with a brown and cream and something with a blue and brown and so on. They're different uniforms. I can't remember the exact colors out of my head, but you would know depending on the organization of which you are a member exactly what the uniform is. Now, people might argue and ask, why a uniform? Because, number one, we have an open port. Anybody could come onto the port and pretend to be a taxi driver and take the tourists, wherever they want to take them, and then we have problems on our hands. And it just makes you look very professional and businesslike. So we encourage people to put themselves together properly, make sure that you look as if you're part of a particular team. And to me, that breeds the kind of confidence that we want to inspire in our visitors, that these are people who, it may not be fair, but people judge you by how you look. It may not be fair, but people judge you by how you put yourself together. And that is why we say sometimes there are some very nice looking thieves. People trust you because you have on a jacket and a tie and so on and so forth, right? So I'm saying it doesn't necessarily, people might say, well, I could still do it without the uniform. That is true. But for the whole look of being a professional, we encourage people to wear the uniform. The translators, just this morning, somebody was speaking to me about the whole idea of being able to offer that service. And my recommendation is that you make your application to us. And of course, you would have an interview. We want to make sure that we confirm that you're able to do what you say that you can do. And we can move it from there because we do need translators. That is the truth. We do.
People who can speak
Different languages. French, Spanish, German, and so on.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Hey, that's right.
Yes, Jam
Me
Down.
again, because I don't like how I address them three questions, The tourism must got somebody with a book down there by Richie Stone and looking at the groups them trying to sell the country. And when a problem arrives, ask the taximan to report to one of the officers them. Because Miss Morton, you always ain't got no time to be down on the ground and see what's happening. It's a nasty charade that be going on down here. You understand what I'm saying? And these things ain't gonna work in thinking, Because this is the industry carrying this country.
And all of them going to clean up. The question of uniform, I don't think you are policing that sufficient. You all got police down there, and some of the police, them in you studying what's going on. For instance, you got a young man, he had in the best, just come over the port, and right in front of the tourists them, if they're drinking a drink, the man run down in the garbage. Chubby drinking another drink, and go drink it. That is embarrassing. When one of the tourists show me it on the laptop, I felt so bad. I mean, the police, they're going to do the work, you know, because next year he coming at you like a bull, you know.
Okay, jam down.
I'm telling you, you know.
Okay, jam down.
Noted. Everything that Mr. Manners has said has been noted, and he brought in some of the other ministries that are involved, and the conversation continues with the police,
Yes.
and the dispatchers and all of the other persons who are charged with that responsibility of making sure that things are done properly on the port.
It's a work in progress.
Yes, it is.
Working for you. Good afternoon.
Pleasant good afternoon, Leslie. Good afternoon, Daniel. Good afternoon, Milton.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure, Daniel. Every time I hear your voice, I think the last time you were on this program, it opened up my eyes to new vision. And Heart of Sankey Foundation, I must endorse you guys probably 3-4 times on the line. Because I could see the work in progress. I've been to the different sites. Just recently we had a walkthrough on a project that we will be undertaking in the new year. And I must thank the ministry for their support. I must thank Daniel, always hands down, and sometimes they would call and find out what's going on, what's new. And just recently from the CTO conference, I learned so much. It opened up my eyes to what the other islands have to offer. And I told the PS and Daniel, look, we are going to bring home 2 of those. And Daniel told me, no, not 2. St. Kitts next year for the CTO conference, we're going to have at least 3 of those. And that's the mandate that we are working on for the new year. And I can give you the assurance, as long as God give me health and strength, St. Kitts tourism will rise, should rise, and will start above the rest, because we are in it in a partnership together. Tourism is all of us here in St. Kitts. It's our business. And we got to keep on working together, and I'm going to support you guys in anything you're going to do to make this product better. So I want to thank you guys so much for the information, and I'll keep in tune.
Okay.
Thanks much, Barry.
Thank you,
Much
Barry.
appreciated.
Now, Daniel, you were speaking about the moorings, I think, when
Yes. I was saying that that's a project that is being worked on by the Department of Marine Resources, fixed moorings, along with the Department of Maritime Affairs. So those are things that are being put in place, because the concern of the caller is a concern of ours, right? So it's going to be done. It is an expensive undertaking, and as you can appreciate, it's going to take a little while, right? But it is being done. It is being considered.
Okay. Now, we have a very young population, a lot of youths and so on, and they will be the ones who will have to carry. They are the generation that we basically have to educate in terms of our tourism product, how to preserve it and conserve it. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Williams, and to your panel.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, on the issue of the mentally unstable people, there's nothing much you could do about it, because if they're not a danger to anybody, I don't think it should be such an issue, because I've been in New York on many occasions, and you can walk in peace for them, and New York has a booming tourist industry, and it doesn't seem to affect it. So I don't think we should really pull down our product because of these little hiccups. I mean, dealing with the taxi men and their behavior and their dressing and stuff like that, I could sign off on that, but we are not the only place in the world that have mentally unstable people roaming around. If they're not a danger to anyone, we shouldn't make it an issue, and, basically we acting like we're the only place that have this particular issue. America has a very, very depressing homeless situation, but it does not seem to affect their tourism product in a lot of those major cities. So we should just tread lightly with certain things and try to accentuate the positive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Diane, trying to finish what you're saying.
No, I'd finished on the
moorings.
moorings.
Okay.
This
We were
is-
talking about the youth. I
Yeah,
think.
yes, young people. We need to get more young people involved. And Mrs. Morton had spoken about it. That is something we take very seriously at the Ministry of Tourism, which is one of the reasons we piloted the tourism education program. But in other activities that we undertake, we also involve young people. Even the Destination Guardian training, and we also had another training earlier this year for tourism enterprises, specifically for tourism enterprises. And we got some people together, and most of the people who participated were young people, and they have said to us that they want to start their own program, and we have let them run with it. It is your baby, you get it going. What we will do, we'll be like nannies, we'll support your with the undertaking and the caring of this baby that you have conceived. We will provide the support and the technical, the guidance and stuff like that. But let the young people come up with the innovation. The older ones like us will be there to guide based on experience, right? But we always encourage the youth to come in and speak to us about their ideas.
Okay. Now, a number of the other islands were ravaged by the previous hurricanes. Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Maria. Some of them, like St. Martin, working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon again. I just want to remind Daniel that the moorings will actually pay for themselves because people prefer to not handling the anchor, just grab the mooring and tie up on it, and they'll be in a better position.
Sure.
The other thing I want to touch is the Timothy Hill. I think he could do with some photo parties at Timothy Hill, because it's a place now that you have lots of people who are drinking from the bars, and they will want to have some place to release the extra fluid. So having that fluid in their system, it will be nice to have some photo parties at Timothy Hill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
Caller, I'm smiling because it seems as if you're peeping on what's going
Yes.
on down at the Ministry of Tourism and the SKTA, because that is in the works for the next couple of weeks. They have actually been ordered. If they're not on island already, they should be on island shortly, and Timothy Hill has been identified as one of the places where we would put down the porta potties.
Thank you very much. Let's go to work.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay. We were talking about some of the hurricane-ravaged islands in the Caribbean. Some of them, were big on tourism. For example, St. Martin, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the British Virgin Islands. Their tourism product has been affected adversely. And how has that impacted our tourism product in St. Kitts?
Well, some of the business, as you would imagine, that would have gone to them would come to us. We're not gloating over,
Yes.
their misfortune, but there are people who still want to come to the Caribbean on their vacation, and so we're making sure that the message is clear that St. Kitts is still open for business. So that's one way in which. The second way in which we would have in some way benefited is that we are learning from them how the strategies that they are using to rebound as quickly as they possibly can. At the forum that we had very recently, we had a representative from the BVI, from St. Martin, from Antigua and Barbuda, from, I think, Turks and Caicos, and one other territory. I hope I'm not missing out.
St. Martin.
Anyway, those islands that were devastated, they spoke in practical terms about some of the strategies that they are using to make sure, even in the state of destruction in which they're finding themselves, they are still trying their best to make sure that they find avenues for keeping their names in the news in a positive way, to try to counter some of the negativity and to attract people to come to the island still. One, we spoke about the whole idea of voluntourism. That is one of the avenues that they're exploring. That there are persons out there who want to come to these devastated territories to help to rebuild. And while they're there, they have to stay somewhere, they have to eat, they have to live, they have to drive a car, you know, that type of thing. So that is one way in which you can still continue to earn some revenue. The other thing is that, believe it or not, there are persons out there who want to visit islands that have been devastated. They want that type of, to see for themselves, to experience for themselves, and so on. And so, life has given you lemons,
Yes.
make lemonade.
Yes.
Right? So you have that. Then you also have the loyal person who would say, and they tell you that there are some persons like that, they say, listen, every summer for the past 15 years, my husband and I have come to X Island. And not because you all are struggling this time around, we are still going to come.
Right.
So it's for you to understand the product that you have and the strategies that can be employed, and to have that outreach and engagement still, and keep your island's name there. Let people know that you are available for business.
Sure. Okay. Working for good afternoon. An overseas call.
Hey, how are you today?
Very well, thank you.
All right, listen here, man. We're going to go back to this tourism stuff here. You want to have good tourism, you got to elevate your country. Do something that overseas people going to like. For instance, make your hospital better. For instance, make your street better. For instance, make your boat better. Going from Nevis to St. Kitts or wherever you go to, make it better, make it faster. You always have to make something better. You give me something, I give you something. For instance, if you give me something to attract me to St. Kitts, I will come to St. Kitts and spend my US dollars. That you give me something, you send me back home happy, and I spread the word for you. You do not have to do it on an international stage. If the people come to St. Kitts and they're getting a good treatment, when they come back home, they will tell the people there that they had a very nice time. I want to thank you today for listening to me. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. We were discussing Hurricane Various Islands, yeah.
So you're asking how we would have benefited. And as I said, the representatives spoke in very practical terms. The whole idea of dispensing sometimes, while you're in the middle of a crisis, sometimes you have to dispense with the red tape.
Yes.
You know, it's the young man from St. Martin, for example, said, they have Dutch St. Martin, French St. Martin, and they have their different rules and laws and so on. But it was interfering with their ability to respond to some of the crisis situations that they ended up with. And in some ways, they had to come together, sit around the table, dispense with some of that, the protocols that would normally obtain, and to focus on what is on the ground. We have to work together. Stop looking about who is French St. Martin, who is Dutch St. Martin. This is a small island, this is St. Martin. What are we going to do to help our people? Okay. And so those are some of the lessons that we learned, that perhaps, as Diane said, we avoid some of those pitfalls if, God forbid, we should find ourselves in a similar situation down the road.
Now, this is the time of Carnival. And what is the Ministry of Tourism doing to attract tourists to experience Carnival, which is basically our culture?
I think in some ways you're speaking to perhaps our stay-over visitors.
Stay-over?
Yes, we are working very hard.
And some of our crews.
And the crews, I don't know if we have gotten to that as yet. I know we had that discussion when the marketing retreat took place just recently. That came up, and I think we're coming up with a formula for how to get that done, because people would have to come on island, have enough time to enjoy themselves, catch the boat when it's going back out, and so on and so forth. And we have to make sure that this they enjoy themselves in a very safe way. You don't want any unfortunate incidents while they're here. So I think we're still working out the formula for how we are going to package that.
Sure.
Where the overseas visitor is concerned, I think a lot of persons coming in, that is where we need to perhaps target, get the pack, that's the troops that we call the troops and so on, the bands, get that information out there in a timely fashion so that people understand what are the themes, what are the different options that they have, and the opportunities to join a band or to join a troop and so on. So I think that those are some of the things that we are working on to make sure that we put something out there that, as the caller said earlier, that is enticing, that is attractive, that is safe. We can guarantee people's safety and security while they're here on island. We want to do that for our residents as well. But you could imagine when an international, something goes wrong, the black eye that you get. So we are very, very particular as a ministry and as the SKTA with that type of entertainment where that is concerned, because we don't want anything adverse to get out there. As best we can, we're trying to control that.
Sure. Well, I think that we are out of time. And we have had an excellent program today in speaking about one of the industries, or the industry that is the most important to our economy at this point where we are in St. Kitts and Nevis. Sugar is no longer king. It is now tourism. It is now service. We're in a service-based economy. And we have to understand what it means to serve. What service basically is. And to offer the best service that we can offer as a people. Now, is there anything that you would like to say before we leave?
Before we close, I want to extend heartfelt congratulations to Diane on the hard work, all of the effort, all of the energy, the synergies that she was able to bring together to make sure that the forum was a success. And Diane is very modest. Diane is not telling you that she was elected by her tourism peers as the chairman, focal point in that on the sustainable tourism technical committee that is managed by CTO.
Congratulations.
So I think we need to put our hands together for Diane. And again, that speaks to the confidence that people are willing to place in Diane and in St. Kitts because of the programs and initiatives that we have been able to implement. I know Diane is a very hard-working person, and I know that she's going to do an excellent job as the chairperson and the focal point for that particular committee. So I want to encourage all of the persons who are engaged in any way in tourism on St. Kitts, all of the stakeholders, and by the way, that is everybody, because we are all involved in tourism, to make sure that we put our best foot forward, to make sure that we continue to come up with ideas for increasing the product that we have, the different sites, the different attractions, enhancing what we have. As you say, focusing very much on providing the best service that we can, so that we always add value to our destination, and we make it a place where people always want to come and visit, and a place that we can enjoy as Kittitians.
Basically, I just wanted to thank the local contributors and sponsors for the forum. Christoph Harbour, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Belmont Farm, Timothy Beach Resort, St. Kitts Marriott Resort, Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park, Roughneck Tours, St. Kitts Eco Park, Wingfield Estate, Caribou Bell Batik, the TDC Group of Companies, the Angelique Dance Company, the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, the Department of Marine Resources, the Caribbean Sustainable Education and Awareness Organization. And I would also like to say to everybody that if we make it good for us, it will be better for all, and tourism in St. Kitts will become sustainable tourism.
Well, I want to thank both of you, Mrs. Morton and Mrs. Williams, for being on today's program.
It was a pleasure.
You are very fortunate in a sense that you have ended the year in terms of working for you, because this is our last program for 2017. We'll be back in 2018, and it was a fitting way to end this year's show in highlighting all the successes that we have had in really such an important industry in the Federation, and the ministry, of course, in highlighting all the work that you have been doing to make tourism a success in the Federation. And we are seeing the successes, and we are seeing the cruise ships coming and so on. And by next year, we are going to see the pier, the new pier, which will start. They will start construction, and we'll have, more capacity, to meet the demands of a thriving tourism sector. So I thank you so much for coming.
And thank you
Thanks
for having us.
Okay. And to all of you in 2017 who have been very faithful to this program, working for you, all of you that listened, all of you that called in, offered your suggestions, asked your questions, wherever you are in St. Kitts Nevis and all over the world, we want to tell you that we appreciate you every week, and we look forward to having you again in 2018. This has been our last program for 2017. On behalf of myself and my team at the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, what we refer to as SKNIS, we want to wish you a Merry Christmas and all the best for 2018. I am your host, Les Roy Williams. We will see you next year. Thank you very much.
Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Les Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for you is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for you.